With Ms. Shea Tinsley,
Ms. Tinsley?
or Dr. Shea Tinsley,
Dr. Tinsley.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We will start our questioning. Mr. Ferrari first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question, I've been asking the same two questions to folks, and my first question is related to academics. SOL scores are not where they need to be, incredibly low statewide. And it's my belief that academics should be a laser focus for the next school board slate of candidates who are appointed. And so how will you, over the next 3 years, make that a focus over the next 3 years, academics and SOL scores?
Sure. I think it would be a three-pronged approach: collaboration with administrators, teachers, parents. I think there's also an element of community engagement, outlining the function of SOLs, right? And how they're supposed to operate. So SOLs establish a standard so that institutions can see how students are performing across the Commonwealth. And I think there's been some miscommunication around how they're supposed to function, right? SOLs are not supposed to teach much. They're just supposed to kind of measure your ability to answer a question. If it is the case that teachers are teaching, and I believe that they are, because you don't enter education just to kind of go through the motions, you enter education because you have a passion and a heart. So it could be the case that students are unequipped with the skill that it takes to complete and successfully kind of perform on a standardized test, because that is a separate skill set. Being able to take a standardized test is separate from being able to complete a test that your teacher gives you, because the questions are formatted differently. And so it might be the case that we need to provide additional resources, including a test taking kind of course, some materials online, but it would be three-pronged. It would be collaboration with the teachers, educators, and parents. It would be looking at presenting issues, and then kind of community engagement around the function of the SOL.
Thank you.
Ms. Reed?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Very impressive resume. I was actually exhausted reading through it because you are a busy woman with a lot of experience in a lot of areas. So good for you. Also, your taking your daughter to Harvard story was really cool and inspirational. So that's awesome. One of the things I've been talking to the previous candidates about is, the role of the school board, understanding what you actually can and can't do. And people, we've had feedback from community members, former school board members, current school board members on, kind of advising us, hey, make sure that people understand what it is a school board member actually does. And also understanding the commitment of a school board member, because just like we have learned over the last so many years, we aren't here just for Tuesday nights. We're all here right now for our whole morning, and we'll be here again for tomorrow morning until however long it takes. And we're always thinking about our citizens if we're doing our job well. And if we're doing our job well, we show up at community events as much as we possibly can. And so there's a lot of things outside of Tuesday nights that we are obligated to. And that is really the expectation of a school board member. It's not just Tuesday nights, it's showing up prepared and ready to understand what it is you're voting on and on a Tuesday, but it's also being at the schools for very important events during the week, during the day. It's committees that the school board has. We have they have an academic success committee. They have a disciplinary committee that sometimes meets for 5 and 6 hours when they get together. That can be during the afternoon and evenings. There are school events that happen in the evenings and daytimes where they really want the school board members to be present to show the families that they're invested in being part of the school district. And so with that said, are you prepared and able to make that commitment if selected for the school board, understanding that it's more than just showing up to a meeting?
Absolutely. And I don't see these events as obligations. I see them as opportunities. I'm excited about it, right? I'm excited to attend the events and, the school boards and go to the fairs. These are things that I want to do. It's a big part of the reason I applied for the position.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to serve our community. We really appreciate that. And it's a very impressive resume. As far as volunteering in our school system, what has your engagement been in the Lynchburg school system? How have you been involved? Why do you think you're the right person for the school board position at this time?
I have a long history of civic engagement, right? Starting when I was a young girl in elementary school, my father took me campaigning for Sheriff Glenn Hill in Prince William County, right? And he's still serving as sheriff, right? And throughout my career, I've done a lot of legislative work, interned at the Department of State, did some work with some UN diplomats when I was Director of Development at Peace Islands Institute. I've done a lot of volunteer work when I was living in Palmyra, served on the electoral board. So I think I'm one of the few people who can say I voted for both Trump and Kamala Harris, because when you serve on the electoral board, if someone can't read the ballot, you kind of have to physically kind of do that for them. And so I have a significant experience there. When it comes to legislative work, I, in February, went before the General Assembly, provided expert testimony in support of Senate Bill 421 to help expand access to health care. I'm doing some really nice things at my daughter's daycare right now at Chestnut Academy. And so not only do I have a history of civic engagement, I think I have the ability to contribute to the school board to help you guys meet your objectives.
Oh, thank you.
Ms. Tinsley? If you were on the discipline committee, would you be able to suspend or expel a child?
I've fired people often. And so discipline is part of maintaining order. And also the students who will come before the school board, I'm assuming that there's a reason. You're not going to randomly choose a child to expel them or suspend them, right? You do have to have consequences. Part of being on the school board, right, you have to model the behavior that you want to see in your kids. If you're allowing students to break rules and they're not responsive to interventions, right, you don't want to save one child at the cost of the rest of the school. And that also sends the wrong message. Unfortunately, it might be a hard lesson for them to learn, but you have to enforce the rules. And you have to prove that there are consequences for negative behavior.
Thank you. Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Tinsley, for putting yourself forward for this. It's doesn't pay a lot, but it is rewarding, and I would encourage you to continue your public service. You've got a pretty good history of it. One of my pet peeves is acronyms.
Sure.
So if you wouldn't mind educating me on a few of them that I see on your application. What is VAMARP, V-A-M-A-R-P?
That's just the Virginia Association that's in charge of regulating medication assistant programs throughout the state of Virginia, the opioid programs.
Okay, and ASECT, A-A?
That's just the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Teachers, that's all.
And ASWB?
That's just the association that governs social workers.
I apologize for not knowing all these things. MSTI?
That's Modern Sex Therapy Institutes.
Thank you. I think that was it. There might have been a couple more. ASWB?
That's just the association that governs social workers.
And MSW Supervisor?
Masters of Social Work Supervisor.
Okay, thank you for indulging me on that.
No, anytime.
My question comes from some personal experience I had when I ran for Ward 3 in Lynchburg. Many of the parents approached me and they were deeply concerned about some sexually explicit, highly sexualized books that were being put in the libraries, including in some cases the books that were making their way into even the elementary school collections. And when I ran for office, I was clear that school libraries should contain age-appropriate materials, and that controversial sexual topics should be left to the parents and not introduced to children through a school library. If you are selected by us to be a school board member with your background in sexual therapy, would there be any specific policy you would be able to support to ensure that the library materials are age appropriate and subject to some meaningful parental review.
And
Would you support removing sexually explicit books from the elementary schools?
yes.
And if not, why not?
No. I want to clarify, being a sex therapist means that I'm working with survivors of rape and incest. I was mandated to serve as a therapist for men who were convicted of rape. I'm not advocating for a 5-year-old reading sexually explicit content, right? This feels like a pretty common sense approach to education. That would be a huge distraction. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in 4th grade, my mom gave me the Focus on the Family book that was a Christian ministry that would teach you sex education, just to answer questions. My dad handed me the book and he goes, all right, you read this, and if you have any questions, ask your mom, right? And because you have to be age appropriate. When I was in 6th grade, I went to a public school. They provided sex education, and my parents said, no, absolutely not. You're not doing that. So they wrote a note, and I went to the library during the sex ed class. My parents didn't want the public school to teach me about sex. I think that's a pretty fair standard. That's a question, that's a topic that you should have at home with your kids.
So a policy that you could,
I wouldn't mandate, I would not allow sexual content in elementary or middle school. I also think it could be misused if you put it in a high school. So there are lots of other books that kids can read that don't have sex in them, and our library should probably just stick to those. I don't think that there should be sexually explicit books in any public school library.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How you doing, Dr. Tinsley?
Doing well, thank you.
Great, thank you. So kind of a similar question that I've been asking everybody, but I just try to change it up a little bit. Through categorical funding, City Council prioritized instruction over administration back in 2023 in the Lynchburg City Schools budget. This delivered historic salary increases for our frontline educators, and it also led to the elimination of the equity department, which marks the beginning of the end for divisive DEI programs in our division, programs that are unnecessary and take resources away from the classroom. If a mandate or pressure comes down from Richmond to bring back DEI programs into our schools, including things like unconscious bias training for teachers or anything in a classroom, will you commit today to pushing back against those efforts and protecting our focus on core instruction and educators?
Sure. So I want to clarify, the line of logic is we eliminated DEI to give more resources to other programs in school, and the goal was to remove it so that we can improve academic performance. It might be the case that that did not happen.
So just to clarify, what happened was when we took money out of administration,
Yeah.
the first thing that the school board eliminated, because it was the least necessary thing, was the equity department.
Okay.
That's what happened. We took
Okay.
money out of administration and put it into instruction.
Okay. I don't have any opposition to that. It looks like it already occurred. So if they try to bring something back that would not be in alignment with what Lynchburg needs and wants, of course, I'm going to support my community.
So you would make a commitment to pushing back against Richmond if they're putting a mandate out to put DEI training in for teachers and
So I'm gonna-
DEI programs and instruction into the classrooms?
So I want to make sure, because I'm new to Lynchburg, that I don't misunderstand what you mean by DEI, because I'm getting the sense that there's probably some local context that I don't have.
So things like
access
unconscious
to.
bias training and things like that.
Okay, unconscious bias training. I don't necessarily think that's harmful. I also don't understand why that would cost money to do that. I mean, if I'm selected to serve on the school board and there's someone who has a question about unconscious bias, I'm sure I could provide that at zero cost.
As far as policy, implementing policy requiring teachers to participate in unconscious bias, or employees to participate in DI programs like unconscious bias training, would you support, if there was a mandate from Richmond to say, you have to do this?
Right.
Would you support that mandate or would you oppose it?
I wouldn't support anything that took away from education and academic training. However, and this is why you're not getting the yes or no from me, I'm hesitant to engage in dichotomous thinking, right? So I'm a therapist trained in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's something called cognitive distortions, right? And it was developed by Aaron Beck in the 1970s, and he says the reason why you have a lot of negative outcomes and a lot of tension between people is people have negative beliefs that kind of color the way they see reality. And so dichotomous thinking says there's really it removes space for nuance. Dichotomous thinking removes space for complexity. Because it says things are either black or white and there's no gray area. I've seen people who were very much impacted by DEI, like positively impacted by DEI movements. And then I've seen people who have been harmed by DEI movements. I think the logic behind a DEI movement is that we should make space for people who aren't like us. And I have compassion for people who aren't like me. And I think that we all should have that. And so if Richmond tries to pass down something that says, all right, well, we want all of your teachers to participate in training that will teach them how to work with handicapped children, because that falls under DEI. I'm not going to be opposed to that. In fact, I think a teacher recently on Tuesday tried to increase funding for children who were disabled, right? So I can't say, no, I won't support DEI because training teachers to deal with special needs kids falls under DEI. So I cannot commit to not training teachers to be able to work with disabled children.
I think that actually falls under special education. There's an umbrella of special education for that.
There was a section, well, now it does.
And also ADA covers that.
Yeah.
But the specific thing that I'm asking about is things like unconscious bias training, things of that nature, like the anti-racist training type things for educators and school staff.
Right.
If there was some kind of mandate for that to come down from Richmond, would you support the mandate from Richmond or would you oppose the mandate from
Well, I
Richmond?
don't think anyone's pro-racism, so I think training people not to be racist, if we still need that, might be necessary.
So you support the whole anti-racist training, the framework that kind of teaches people that they're fundamentally biased, that they have some kind of internal bias just because of their color?
That's an intelligent question. No, I do not believe that people fundamentally are evil based on color. So that's a really good question. No, that's not something that I believe. But I'm concerned that saying that I'm against anti-racism might by default, right? Because we're dealing with dichotomous thinking here, might by default be interpreted by some as Shea's pro-racist, which I'm not.
No, I don't think you are. I'm not saying that.
I don't think you are either. Thank you.
But that I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. I love your outfit.
Thank you.
You're a great presenter. Great outfit. It's true.
It's a
Anyway.
great thing to say.
Yeah. So I really appreciate your application. And especially being new to the community, I know it can be uncomfortable or a risk putting yourself out there in this kind of public role. So thank you for your application. I am going to address just actually the basis of why I'm not going to vote in favor at this time, and then I'll just defer my time to the rest of my colleagues. I spent a long time going through your resume, great credentials, highly experienced. The nature of your experience and expertise, I don't believe is what we're currently needing in that particular role. And specifically the online course that you've created and its connections with Pineapple Support, and then Pineapple Support's funding through Pornhub and others. And I understand the value of providing therapies to individuals in need, but the nature of that being stigma-free and accessible mental health support to all persons working in the online adult industry, confidential kink-aware, LGBTQIA+ affirming therapy, as identified on Pineapple Support's own website, and how on your website that is connected to, is identified as the qualifying foundational training for clinicians working in sex therapy by sex support or by Pineapple Support I just don't think that that's the skill set that we're needing in the context of the school board right now with the role. So I really appreciate your application, your expertise, and thank you for your application. And I'll defer my time.
If I may, just push back a little bit. So I am the only ASEC certified MSTI
Right.
sex certified therapist in the state of Virginia. It is a necessary skill to have, and it might be one that you need in the school system. So my dissertation was on elucidating a mode of thought. It was a 3-part study on how to address kind of these new issues that all clinicians are facing in the clinical space. So there's this significant increase in a number of people who feel that they are gender dysphoric, right? And this isn't something that we dealt with in 2013, right? Before we would say, oh, the trans community makes less than 1% of the population. Right now, it's about a quarter. What's kind of feeding into that, right? What's leading to that huge spike or increase? And a lot of the clinicians now are not trained to look at trauma, to look at how to measure gender dysphoria. My dissertation focused on how to think clearly about really difficult layered issues, nuanced issues. And so when you're looking at school board, and some of the issues that Lynchburg is facing, it might be helpful to have someone on the board who not only can think clearly, but has developed a model around how to solve issues. So I spoke to the world's top clinicians. I was able to pose questions about how they solve issues. And so what you might need is someone new who could say, okay, I can bring together diverse perspectives, right? And I can use this thinking model, we call it clinical reasoning, to solve issues that might come up, because it is a pretty broad thinking model. It might be helpful to have.
I appreciate your response with that. And again, I really appreciate your expertise with the transitions currently taking place in the school board and the focus that has been shifted. I think that there are other priorities we need to put forward at this time, but thank you.
I could not disagree more. I think that is an absolute slap in the face to the mental health issues that have to be addressed in the school system right now. I don't know if you knew this, ma'am, but I'm the vice chair of Horizon Behavioral Health of their board. And I think what was just framed before you is a complete disservice to what young people are experiencing in 2026. I see your resources as a resource that could be tapped if that is the choice of the council to pursue. I'm not familiar with what else was mentioned, so if you would care to enlighten us about some of the concerns that were shared, I would be very curious.
Yes. So Pineapple Support is a nonprofit based in London that provides talk therapy to adult film stars. And typically, the reason why they need this specialized support is because when they enter in a counselor's office who's not specially trained, the counselor just wants to talk about sex. When really, even if you are an adult film star, you want to talk about conflict that you have with your mom, or maybe trauma you had in childhood. And so we provide that emotional support for adult film stars to really bring their whole selves into the space. And so I would use the exact same interventions that I would use with anyone else, right? I would use CBT, I would use DBT to process anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, because they're humans just like anyone else.
So I want to frame this to you.
Please.
You are a clinical director at a mental health agency and addiction agency, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it your clinical right to refuse service who is seeking your help in a healthcare capacity?
I wouldn't refuse, right? I'm there I show up to provide the service. Yeah.
Here's my point in asking the question.
Yeah.
There are so many children and young people who are in desperate need of help. And if we as a council say that's not a priority right now, we're missing a large component about why my questions are about the academic side, parental trust in the system. So I want to apologize on behalf of my colleague for her completely inconsiderate commentary and questions and dismissing your education your demeanor, your experience, and your application. Thank you.
Ms. Reed?
Do we have like 5 minutes left? Is that how much time? Okay, great, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to Lynchburg City Schools and the kind of the concerns that we have going on right now, because that's obviously what's front and center with a lot of our community members, right? And what they're asking of us to ask you guys. So what do you see as the biggest concern that you'd want to try to tackle head on? And how would you go about doing that as a school board member?
Sure. I think truancy is pretty big because you can't really educate kids who aren't there. And that links to engagement, right? A lack of engagement. I was brought on to lead a clinical team where the clinical engagement rate was around 30%, right? And I told my clinicians, I said, the reason your caseload, your workers aren't showing up is because they don't see the value in the service that you're offering, okay? And so you have to really start with, all right, well, what are you doing besides coming in, right? How do you think that's going to help you achieve your goals? Being intentional about posing questions so that you can find out, okay, what do they value? What are their goals? How can I help them? And how can I help them to see that this service that I'm offering will help them achieve whatever it is they want? And we were able to, and I told my clinicians, you want to find out what they want, you want to find out what they're doing instead and why they're prioritizing that over your service. And then make yourself useful so that they see the value in what you have to provide. It might be the case that the students who aren't attending don't see the value in the education that we're offering. And so what we want to do is lend credibility to Lynchburg school systems to say, hey, this is what we're offering and this is how we can help you get there. It's not just one response. It's the solution is layered, right? It's getting buy-in from the parents. It's showing that Lynchburg is a credible system. I get the sense that a lot of people no longer trust the school board. And if you don't trust the school board, you're really not going to show up or participate in anything they have. And so that's where I would start, is increasing engagement. By the way, once we implemented that engagement intervention, the clinical engagement in my department increased to about 70%. Within 30 days. So we were able to, just by demonstrating the value of the service, get people to buy in and become invested.
Thank you. Let me just tag on to what your response with the truancy is, if you don't mind. So with as Dr. Wilder called it, we, I guess, have a more of an urban setting with the demographics of our school. What would you think might be the core reason in a more urban demographic school system is the cause of our high truancy?
Oh, well, that's what causes
Because
truancy.
apparently our counties are not seeing the same truancy rate. So there's something different about our school system and how it's made up,
Right.
and the counties. So, I mean, again, I kind of put you on the spot, but if you had to do kind of deductive reasoning, would you think that there might be a reason that we're seeing a higher rate with an urban?
Well, I would have to,
school?
You gave me a really good piece of information. You said, well, surrounding counties don't have this issue. So if that's all the information I have, I think my follow-up question would be, well, what's the difference between what they have and what we have, right? What are the gaps there? Do they have a higher parent participation rate? Do they have better compensated teachers? Do they have additional or better transportation? Do they have more technical programs, more specialty programs? What's missing there? What are they offering that we're not?
Good questions. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you again for your willingness to serve. One of the biggest challenges I've seen, I was on school board for 9 years, and we tried to tackle some of that. The biggest challenge has been parental involvement. So again, how would you, as a school board member, how would you address that and work in that area?
Well, yeah, I'm able to be super involved in Fiona's education because I have flexibility in my work schedule. If you're a single mom with 3 jobs, you're not going to have flexibility in the work schedule. So again, going back to like first principles, like what's causing this? I think each parent perhaps has reasons why they can't go to a PTO or PTA meeting or parent-teacher association, so PTA. Maybe we can approach this with curiosity rather than operating based off of the assumptions that parents aren't participating because they don't want to, right? I'm going to assume that these parents are not engaged because they don't have enough support, and maybe providing that could be helpful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. With all your knowledge, how will you be able to talk a child from saying, I'm a cat today?
Say it again.
I am a cat today.
I'm a cat today. Is this a riddle?
No.
No.
It happens.
Is this a trend that young people are engaged in? Yes. That they are cats?
He's talking about furs.
All right. The animatronic device? They're cats?
No. These are real people,
Okay.
children,
Mm-hmm.
saying, I am a cat.
Okay. Are these special? Okay. They are identifying as
Identified
cats.
as a cat.
Are they special needs
No.
children?
The-
Okay.
These are children.
Okay. Probably children who are over-indexing on social media, perhaps, because that's what I've seen when you have these kind of,
How would you be able to
Bizarre
talk a
pages.
child through this?
you're not a cat, but you would kind of work your way into that. It would be a counseling session, right? So I guess to follow the scenario, I'm assuming you're presenting this issue to me because this is a widespread in Lynchburg that children believe that they
it's
are now
happening
cats.
In the counties and in the city,
Okay. All right. And how to kind of address the issue of
yes.
children being wild with their imaginations and going beyond that and actually having
Yes.
a firm belief that they're identifying as cats. Right. We would start with just a counseling session. So if there's a discrepancy between who they are and who they believe themselves to be, the initial counseling session would be a biopsychosocial. You would go through the checklist of, previous trauma, talk to me about where did you grow up, what was the communication like between your primary caregiver and yourself. There's like an item of 10 things to help you figure out if someone has a history of trauma. And then you would do a mental status exam to rule out psychosis. I would have the teacher, send them to counseling to complete a biopsychosocial, and then we'd go from there.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have time?
I'm going to ask my question if I can.
Don't be rude.
I think it's rude to stop me from talking.
I said, I think we did a 30
Well,
minutes.
time.
This is concluded the 30 minutes, but if council wants to
Yeah,
go
you just
on.
recognize
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for recognizing. I appreciate what my colleague brought forward. I don't think he needs any apology. She's certainly not apologizing. I'm not apologizing. I appreciate you being transparent and honest about gender dysphoria. I think it used to be in the APA manual and clinical disorder.
Yeah.
And I think it continues to be, and I think it's very damaging to children to think that it's normal. Sometimes they even damage their own bodies to try to meet that dysphoria. So when you offered to provide your expertise to potentially to our school system and I guess the students in that, I honestly believe that might raise serious boundary issues. A school board member's job is to govern and set policy, oversee budgets, protect students, respect the parents, very much so. So it's not to provide sexual therapy or sex-related counseling.
I didn't offer.
Let me finish. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not to provide sexual therapy or sex-related counseling to children in our schools, even if it's well-intentioned, which I believe you are. I think that crosses the line that should concern parents in Lynchburg, if that's something you think would be appropriate. So, your therapy to porn stars or to children, is not what we're looking for, is what she nicely said. But I think ultimately your offer of those type of services is concerning to me, to be honest. I don't think that's the appropriate role of a school board member. Normally, we would accept all kinds of expertise as a school board member if you were offering those expertises to the parents or to the children. But in this particular case, I don't think that's an appropriate role, and I think it crosses a boundary. And so I just want to speak pretty firmly about that you have a lot of education and a lot of information that could help a lot of people. And I believe some people need that kind of help. But in our Lynchburg City School system, we have pretty strong boundaries between the school board members and what they can do interacting with children. And I think that one would be inappropriate in my mind, so.
Right, and not because I've offered sex therapy to children, which I don't, but because of what my role and background represents. My presence on the school board would send a signal that I'm promoting certain values that might be in conflict with parents. So I do want to clarify, I don't offer sex therapy to kids, and I would not try to impose any set of values. And I also want to clarify that, my values are Christian. I went to a Christian school. I have a relationship with Christ, but I also believe that I should provide counseling for women who've been through sexual trauma. And I believe that I should provide counseling to people who typically can't find mental health support because of what they do for a living. But I understand that optics are also a thing. And if you have a certified sex therapist on the school board, it might send the message that certain over-sexualized behavior or permissible, but I do want to challenge that. So I'm restating your argument to show that I've heard you and that I empathize with your position. But I want to push back briefly because I think the result of my presence on the school board might promote more positive things than you realize, right? Because we do want to make space for folks who can bring a fresh perspective. And if we select people who only affirm our values, and if we only are willing to work with people who are exactly like us, we might miss opportunities for growth and advancement and creative solutions to problems that have persisted over the years. And it sounds like that's what's going on here in Lynchburg. We continue to make the same mistakes. We continue to only select people who are exactly like us. We're not challenging ourselves to kind of move outside of that bubble, and we're unable to find creative solutions. You might, even though my background makes you somewhat uncomfortable, I'm not a threat. I actually get along well with most folks. And I think that maybe voting for someone who isn't exactly like you could be beneficial to Lynchburg at large.
Just to be clear, I don't see you as a threat, and I'm happy to vote for people who aren't like me. I do it all the time. Okay.
Mr. Michels?
I didn't have anything else, and I appreciate your candor, and I appreciate you showing up today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tinsley.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor,